fashionably late, but we're here. Right, Kent?
Yes. Fashionably. I think the great philosopher Matthew Lane said it best when he said the league screwed up when they allowed Xavier Worthy to fall to the Kansas City Chiefs. He looks the real deal. Let's talk about it.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Welcome into a live edition of the KC Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC, our partners in possible here at KC Sports Network. I'm Kent Swanson. I'm here with Matthew Lane. Matty, how are we doing this fine Monday, my friend?
Listen, Kent, we're doing great. We're inching closer and closer to the Chiefs taking the field for a real game, but also, I bet you didn't know this. College football officially starts this week. It is week 0. Come Saturday, there is college football games to be played, football that actually matters. There's not a single preseason game in the NFL that overlaps with them. Like, football is back this week. We are in like the actual single-digit days countdown, less than a full week, barely a work week until football is back, Kent.
Week 0 is the best, man. Like we get a little SEC action right off the top. We get a little Florida State, Georgia Tech action, a top 10 football team
in Ireland.
I don't know if you know this, Montana State, the FCS team is favored to win by double digits against New Mexico.
Yes, they likely also will win that game. They are definitely favorites. They should win that game. We got an Ireland game, a Dublin game. I think Pat McAfee is actually calling. Or part of the broadcast going over that island. Anyway, football's here, man. I couldn't be more excited to watch Montana State throw it down on New Mexico.
Well, I mean, the real sickos are going to try to find Hawaii, Delaware State at 11 o'clock at night that night too. So, I mean, I'll be around. I already know I will be. Didn't Hawaii open up with Vanderbilt last year in week 0?
I think the last 2 years they have done like a 1-1 with Vandy.
And that was remember when Vandy...
Who's that?
Oh, we were talking college ball, Tux here.
Yeah, sorry, I had to pop in. I heard college football was happening. Remember when Vandy smacked Hawaii and everyone's like, Vandy's going to be good this year. Turns out Hawaii just actually sucked. Really
Yeah.
When Vandy won 63-10.
Yes.
Good times. But yeah, I can't wait. I'm really excited about that for sure. I think my boys got a game right during that Montana State New Mexico game, so I guess I'll just I'll just tough it out, I guess, but I can't wait, man.
That's fun.
Real football with real stakes, like it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good time. Looking forward to it. Fall is almost here. We had our first flag football game this last weekend. We got done with the game and my wife's like, yeah, it kind of feels like fall. Kind of feels like we're back. I'm trying to squeeze every little ounce of summer out, though. I'm trying to live as much at the pool as I possibly can for the next couple weeks before it closes up. But
is that why we had to start 11 minutes late? Okay, makes sense.
I had the longest update just sprung on me from my computer, and it was just like, "Hey, you don't have a choice. This thing's restarting, and it's restarting 3 times, and it's going to tease you and make you think." Going to make you think it's ready to roll, and then it's going to be like, nope. Sorry, we got a little bit more to update. So apologize for that for those that are showing up for the live stream. That is on me. We got plenty of Chiefs discourse to have here. It's going to be lots of fun. I'm excited, man. Like, I think after we're out of week 2, where the last time we're going to see these starters, this next week is just a formality, really. Things are kind of starting to take shape a little bit here or there. So, I'm getting quite excited. Got a good look at some players, finally got to watch a little bit of the tape too and really focus in on some of these guys and get a look at them. And Yeah, I think there's reason to be excited for a lot of different reasons. We'll start with one that I think is probably one of the most important. Xavier Worthy, my friend, I'd taken away watching the game even a little bit more. I remember one of the first things you said, just the gravity that he has and how impactful he is just with that vertical stretch ability, really truly opening some things up and that kind of stuff. I mean, what he's done for this offense is already a little bit noticeable.
Yeah, everybody watched the game, right? We all have seen Xavier Worthy go out there and they're not forcing, but they are making sure it's clear that they want to push the ball downfield to Worthy. So you get him essentially running, the little post corner. I mean, the jet chip wasp stuff they got going on there. They throw it out to him. He makes a nice adjustment. Whether or not he false started, we will ignore for now. And then they come back later. They throw him a go route down the sideline, and then they come back later. Carson Wentz hits him on the deep over. Like, they're making it very clear that they plan on trying to push the ball downfield to this guy, and it looks good. I mean, it looks really good. And just when watching him, my very first thing I think every time when I'm watching him is just he's got that speed that's a little bit different. And there's been people that went all the way back to his college tape that said, like, I don't think he's 4.21. I don't think he's the guy that should have been running as fast, that he ran the fastest time ever at the combine, but I don't think he plays like that. And I kept going back to, like, have you seen Quinn Ewers throw a football? He just can't put it where it needs to go. I don't think him or even A.D. Mitchell, who was on the same team with him, could really get downfield at the pace that they wanted to, right? And so while we haven't seen Xavier Worthy just get a 70-yard runway to just fly straight in a straight line down the field for the Chiefs so far, we have seen his acceleration. We have seen the burst. We have seen him make a catch in practice and training camp and then just turn it on and just change and completely break angles across the field. And then now we get to see it in this football game against the Lions here. He hits that little stutter step, and that DB didn't even come forward. I don't even say he got flat-footed. He just hesitated slightly. And how fast Xavier Worthy was able to explode out of that little stutter step, he immediately crosses his face, creates a ton of separation in a blink of an eye. He's just got the speed that looks different on a football field from even other fast football players.
When we talk about the preseason games and what these teams put on tape and what they don't, everything is by design. They're only going to show what they care to show you in the preseason. But I think when you have a rookie with this kind of skill set, with this kind of quarterback, with this kind of coaching staff that knows how to utilize him, you want to put a little bit of this on tape because you want to help establish the fear of the vertical passing game, because this offense will run at its finest when there is a vertical stretch element to it that really didn't have a lot of consistency last year. But what we've got to see is that impact already. You got to see Xavier Worthy involved in a few different areas. You got to see him involved on a corner route where he's just sitting there wide open with that speed up the field. And then you get to see him run a really well-designed play, which I'm not surprised that the Chiefs showed it, because they have plenty more in the bag on how they're going to utilize Xavier Worthy in this offense. I thought it was a nice little play call. Kind of almost creating a little traffic up top with the little, curl that I think is locked into a curl by the tight end, and essentially creating a little rub up there at the top of the route so he can cut across the field. I think we've seen actually a few looks like that in the KC. If you go to KC Sports Network's, Xavier Worthy highlights, you might be able to see similar looks that maybe weren't always the same side, but maybe some kind of similar, some mid-level rub almost. That wasn't just a true, crosser almost. But I think anytime you can get a guy like Xavier Worthy that can run vertical, can get up the field, but also can run across the field and run away from people with great consistency, like they've shown the ability to stretch the field. They've set that tone. They set the tone on day one when Patrick Mahomes uncorked that throw that you can see at KC Sports Network right now. They've done a good job of establishing the threat and the consistency of Xavier Worthy, Patrick Mahomes being a real thing. And I think that just opens up everything else. You've seen what this team has done with or what Andy Reid's done with the DeSean Jackson in the past. And that's lofty expectations for a young Xavier Worthy. But the early returns on this kid don't scare me too far away from, expecting really, impressive things from this rookie. He is in the perfect situation. We said it. He was in a phenomenal situation when he was drafted, and getting to see the fruits of that reality has been a lot of fun over the last month.
Yeah, we kind of said it, or I think I said it even after the game there against the Lions. Like, you watched, the NFL watched Andy Reid have DeSean Jackson. They watched Andy Reid have Tyreek Hill. And I'm not saying Xavier Worthy is going to be one-to-one to those players, but you have directly watched Andy Reid with players of this similar skill set. And I think I like to go with the DeSean Jackson route of it a little bit more because it's the more of the body type. I think they're going to do more of the stuff. Like the way that DeSean Jackson won vertically, the way that he even won after the catch is entirely different than Tyreek Hill. And so I think that's a better comp. But either way, like you've seen Andy Reid with this type of player. The shortcomings that are going to be there, the inconsistency beating press coverage. I mean, even still now, you look at Xavier Worthy in this game, when they ran that go route down the sideline, he widened way too far. And that's why he couldn't get on top of the corner. He just gave the corner such a loose angle to get on top of him and close the distance to the sideline. That's something you can fix with more time. So like he still has things he has to work on, but you can take Andy Reid, look at what he's done in the past. Like, oh, it's not going to be that hard for Andy Reid to get him off the line of scrimmage, to get him in motion, to get him out of the slot and still press down the field vertically. And what we're going to see over and over again, I think throughout the years, the speed's just going to be so much that it's either going to dictate the coverage you're getting from your opponent, or you're going to run eventually into a game where he might just catch, and it might only be 2 passes in the entire game, but it's going to be 2 45, 50-yard touchdowns because just nobody on the team can keep up with him when he even remotely makes a guy think about what he can do. So yeah, I think there's a lot there. I think the lofty expectation, DeSean Jackson hits the ground in the NFL with like 900 some yards, like his first year, not a lot of touchdowns, but he was the 900 yards. I think that's a lofty goal, but I think it's certainly within reach when you watch how Xavier Worthy moves on the field. The way the Chiefs are going to get out there and weaponize him. You watch him coming in and out of the breaks he's making. You watch his route technique. People, I think, have tried to call him a track player on the football field. I don't know. I've watched this man make a couple double moves. I've watched his rocker step at the top of his route. You can go back to the post corner. He does a good job of he knows he doesn't have to sell it too hard. Some guys have to really bite into the step, drop their hip level, get their shoulders turned, and then flip back out of it. That's not bad. Just some guys have to do that. When you run a 4-2-1, you just need to get that corner slightly leaning the wrong way and you're going to take off and run away from him. And that's what he does consistently. And that little stutter step with the body control to avoid contact, he does so much stuff a lot better than I think people give credit for. And I think it's going to be really fun come week 3 or 4 as teams are still trying to adjust to him. He might actually hit the first part of the season really, really moving.
And who's stopping him there too? Like if he's being stopped and if everything is being dictated because of Xavier Worthy. Oh, by the way, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, and Hollywood Brown still exist. Like I think that's one of the things that's so fascinating about the Xavier Worthy thing is he could be at times the 4th receiving option on this team. Like when you really look at it, like in this, it's so well built from a where these guys all win. It's so, I mean, good luck trying to, contain everything that this team does. And so you go back to, okay, do we play too high? Do we try to keep a lid on it? Do we try to keep the explosives? Yeah, Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce would love that. They would absolutely love that. Let's let these guys feast in the short to intermediate if you're going to try to keep a lid on this thing and play top down. I think the pick your poison becomes so terrifying for teams if all 4 of these players are on the field at the same time. And I know Hollywood Brown, we're gonna wait and see, right? We're gonna see how long it takes him to get back and that impact, the injury that how that impacts it. But when you get all 4 of those guys on the field, that even just opens up, I think, opportunities for Xavier Worthy even more. You talk about somewhere in the 9s, for receiving yards for DeSean Jackson. And granted, that was 15 years ago when he was drafted. But, Xavier Worthy's over under for the season receiving 750 yards. So like there's still pretty high expectations, I think, from a yardage perspective that Xavier Worthy's going to go out there and put some yards up on the field. And it might be as that 4th option in a passing game that could just be one of the best that we've seen in the Patrick Mahomes era. If everything comes together for all 4 of those, this could be one of, if not the best passing offenses in the Patrick Mahomes era.
Yeah, all the pieces are there. I thought Rashee Rice, like we're mostly talking about Worthy here, but like Rashee Rice, I think you saw a lot of the good in this game against the Lions, right? You saw him finding open spots for zone. You saw him quickly turning into a runner after the catch. Like I hope that Rashee Rice shows more as a complete wide receiver this year. I think the Chiefs are going to try to get him on the line of scrimmage a little bit more. They're going to try to use him versus man and downfield. But if that doesn't happen, not to panic or anything like that, but if that doesn't happen, that's fine. He's still really good at this role that he was used in last year. And I think you can see with all the space you're going to create from a Worthy, and especially once Hollywood Brown comes back, like those two guys together, you're going to create a lot of space for Rashee Rice to get going. And I don't know how, if you're looking at this team with Hollywood Brown speed and Xavier Worthy speed, I don't know how you can really go out of your way to take away the 5-yard hitch and run after the catch. I don't know how you can go out of your way to take away the Rashee Rice slant route and to stop his yak and not sacrifice, spacing on the field or position from your deep defenders to not just get run by. Like, it's going to be really tricky for teams. Like, Rice could be the biggest benefactor of this all. I posted a play on Twitter where it was the Justin Watson catch, but Justin Watson gets wide open. Travis Kelce also wide open in the middle of the field for a 15-yard gain because the Lions are in Tampa too, and both safeties and the middle linebacker are just hauling ass downfield to make sure that Worthy doesn't split them and run between them. And Worthy's not close to open, but it doesn't matter when 3 guys in a zone defense, relatively static zone, are going to chase him. I think that's big. I think that you can see a lot of open space. I will say the biggest thing I got my eyes on for Worthy, we haven't seen it yet, and it's been preseason. Are they going to use him on anything but go plays or at the line of scrimmage, right? Is there going to be anything? When I say short, I don't mean like at the line of scrimmage. I just mean like 0 to 10 or intermediate. If you start seeing him catching the ball on the move across the field or running a couple comebacks, like things that McCole Hardman never really developed while he was with the Chiefs. He just always he's either a go route or he's catching the ball at the line of scrimmage kind of receiver. I think that's where you go from Xavier Worthy being this really threatening deep threat, which I think he'll be good at, to being a more complete wide receiver. And now we really get into can he be a DeSean Jackson-like player for the Chiefs if he can get that, wider variety of routes? Because we just haven't seen it yet for the Chiefs. They've pretty much just used him on deep shots and then like that one little screen pass in this past game.
For sure. And I mean, that can often be like comebacks can often be very coverage dictated too, right? So like there's only so much you're going to be able to see based on the coverages that you're seeing. And, you've got to have space underneath to be able to run a comeback anyway. But yeah, I think even what we saw in college, right? There were glimpses of him being able to run a quality comebacks. Like that's the thing that gives me a lot of belief and hope for him too, is that like we've seen him do that before. We've seen him run those kind of plays in a college setting. So I do have some belief, and he looks better doing it than, let's say, a McCole Hardman. Has there ever been a wide receiver, or has there been a passing target 3 or 4 as good as Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, though? Like, and well, I mean, we can probably even call it Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy if you want, but like, I don't think we've ever seen 4 players on the field this caliber at the same time. Now, they've always had they've had a Travis and they've had a Tyreek, and those dudes are different, but 4 options like they have, and I don't know if we've seen it like this.
Yeah. I mean, like when they had Sammy, it wasn't 4 deep, but when Sammy Watkins was healthy, the 3 wide receiver, like the 3 hit combo of Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Sammy Watkins was really special. Now, you didn't get that much healthy Sammy, obviously, right? But Tyreek Hill was great then. Travis Kelce, as great as he is now, was even better then. So, like, you could make a case that receiving group, when they, like I said, with the healthy Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, you could make a case that that's probably still better than what this year could be, unless Xavier Worthy hits the ground running and has a Jamar Chase-like rookie year, right? But outside that, like this could be very easily number 2, and it very easily could be the most dynamic. Like I could even make an argument that Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, and Xavier Worthy is a more dynamic receiving group than even one that had Tyreek Hill. Right? Like even the one that had Tyreek Hill, just because you have so many guys that can produce those big explosive plays on this team if it all comes together. So yeah, I mean, we should be in for a very exciting year. And we haven't even got to see a lot. Like we talked about the Rashee Rice element, the Xavier Worthy. We haven't got to see Hollywood Brown get comfortable or get utilized. We saw one play where he got open on this little crossover. Like I feel like he's the guy that didn't get talked about enough in national media, because here's a guy that, with the Ravens as the only receiver worth anything on that team, went over 1,000 yards. And now all of a sudden you're going to say like, he's probably getting almost no extra attention on this team. He might be a guy that has a lot once he comes back healthy. So like, I don't know, this could be a really fun offense if all these guys keep hitting.
I think this is an offense that has the most answers that it's ever had. And that's the thing that gives me the kind of excitement, because you've got 4 legitimate weapons, 4 legitimate answers. Where if the ball goes to them at any given time, you're really excited to see the ball go their direction. And the Chiefs have never had more than 2. Sammy, you always a little bit nervous about, but like I'm excited when Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown are touching the football. And so I just think there's so many great answers on any given play for this particular group. And you've got the best quarterback on the planet. Like that's the thing that gets me really excited about the outlook of this team, because I just feel like they've got more solutions on every single play in the passing game than they've ever had. And that's unique, man. That's a really unique place for them to be. We probably need to talk a little bit about week 1 and what's coming up here when it comes to some of these players that may or may not be available. We're getting an update from Andy Reid this week. He expects Chris Jones, Joe Thuney, and Jawan Taylor to be ready to go for week 1. The only player in question is Hollywood Brown, who is dealing with that sternovascular injury. I tweeted out almost as this was going on with Chris Jones. I was like, it's been 2 weeks since Chris Jones' injury, and we haven't really heard any updates on him, and it's starting to get a little bit more nerve-wracking because we got a couple weeks removed. Hasn't been practicing for a couple weeks here. Glad to see it sounds as though we're going to get to see him in week 1. That would obviously be a significant loss, but it does seem like the Chiefs' offensive line will be at full strength for week 1 as well.
Yeah, I think all the guys that you would have expected and wanted to play are going to be there. Obviously, Hollywood Brown and the sternoclavicular injury, he is not going to be. I don't think he's going to be there. I mean, I guess there's a chance. They left it a little open-ended, Andy did, but
okay. 4 to 6 weeks.
As respectfully as I can, Hollywood Brown has been a guy that has often been dinged up and or downright like actively injured. If he's a guy that suffered an injury, I don't know if I can really fall back on saying like, hey, this is a guy that comes back at Adrian Peterson speed from injuries, right? So I just don't expect him to play in week 1, maybe not even week 2 or 3, but that's fine. I don't think the Chiefs are going to have them because we just kind of talked about it. We might like the depth at wide receiver, but Jawan Taylor, having him back is huge. I don't think any of us would like to see, we might get to it a little bit later. I don't think any of us want to see Lucas Niang trotting out there and playing real snaps at right tackle for this team in a regular season game. I have no interest in seeing that. I can guarantee you Patrick Mahomes has no interest in seeing that again. So, hope Jawan Taylor will be back. Chris Jones coming back will be big. We haven't seen him yet. Don't care that you haven't seen him. Right. But getting Chris Jones and Justin Reid to be and Nick Bolton to all come back, you're getting arguably the best player or one of the best players in all 3 levels of your defense coming back. Obviously, Trent McDuffie's better than Reid, but still very good, important player. That's just a lot of guys coming back for this team right up the middle. And that's where this Chiefs defense has struggled the most. So, yeah, I feel good about the updates that we have gotten so far.
I think the vibes were starting to get a little weird for me, just like because there's been so many players that have been dinged up. And like I think that might be a little bit the nature of a team that has played a lot of football over the last couple of years and won back-to-back Super Bowls. That's part of the reason that it's hard to three-peat is the attrition and the exhaustion of what it requires gets to you a little bit. But it's good to see some of these updates coming in here with these players, with Chris and Thuney and Jawan. Like those are 3 of the bigger ones. If Justin Reid's back, great. Nick Bolton would be a big one too there. So hopefully it's just kind of limited to Hollywood Brown. And if he plays great, I don't know if I have a ton of belief that he'll be there, and I hope he proves me wrong and scores 6 touchdowns and all that great stuff. But I feel good about where this team will be heading into week 1, and I genuinely think, I've talked about this even without Hollywood Brown, and I think this is partially why they've tried to set the tone with Xavier Worthy. I think that they've done enough to kind of establish the fear of Xavier Worthy in this offense that it could still be enough to help open things up a little bit for the underneath guys and Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice. And if they can withstand the first couple games without him, oh, by the way, now two of the biggest contenders, I'm not going to say the 2 biggest, 2 of the biggest contenders in the AFC are going to see this Chiefs offense early in the season and without Hollywood Brown. If he's healthy for the postseason, that's just one little wrinkle that they haven't been exposed to. That's a bonus anyway, if they can get out of these 2 games with a win.
Yeah. And I mean, getting all these guys back for the every team's going to look a little different coming into the week 1 of the next season, but you look at the Ravens and even the Broncos a little bit, there's a fair amount of change for both those teams. The Chiefs might be missing Hollywood Brown, but for the most part, it's a lot of the same pieces coming back. Like, you can probably make it through those 2 games without Hollywood Brown, who, if you asked me before he got hurt, and we'll see when he comes back, who the Chiefs wide receiver 1 was, I probably would have put my money on Hollywood Brown being who they would consider their number 1 wide receiver. So like, even being without him for those first 2, even 3 games this year might not be the end of the world. I think it's a lot more important to get those other guys back. And like you said, Chris Jones has played, 5 straight years of football into late January or February. Like, yeah, I don't care if he misses preseason at this point in time, like when it's not like a holdout situation. Jawan Taylor, gets his elbow hurt
last year.
Jawan Taylor gets his elbow hurt in practice, and they just want to hold him out because, like, Wanya Morris, we don't know. Did we get a status update on Wanya Morris?
I don't think we have a Wanya update.
So we don't know his availability.
Tucker's ready to jump in.
It's a bone bruise for Wanya on his knee. That came last week, and Andy didn't seem like he was too worried about it. He just said it was like a painful thing for him. So I don't think he was ever really worried about him missing time, truthfully.
Thanks, Tuck.
Okay. I mean, I hope he doesn't miss time, but like, he hasn't played yet in the preseason. This is a guy that definitely needs the preseason reps too, right? So like, without him, I wonder if it was just precautionary to hold Taylor out. I wonder if he would have been able to go, is essentially where I'm going with it in this past week or whatever with this elbow injury. And they just have no interest in risking him getting hurt because they don't have their swing tackle, I assume, is Wanya Morris, ready to go. You're working a rookie on the other side. It's like, I think it's just they're getting all of the most important pieces back. It would be nice to have Hollywood Brown 2 and be at full strength. But if there is one of the guys that we've mentioned, Bolton, Reid, Chris Jones, Jawan Taylor, and then Hollywood Brown, not that I think he's the worst of the bunch, but if there's one guy that I think you can get by without for a couple weeks, it's probably Hollywood Brown.
I think Chris Jones is going to make the team. I think Joe Tooney is going to make the team. Also think Jawan Taylor will also make the team. But we're going to talk about some of the players that may or may not be making this team. Offensive, stock up. Defensive, stock up, stock down right after this.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone in any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contacts with you. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/KCSNLab. That's mintmobile.com/KCSNLab. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/KCSNLab. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
Appreciate everyone hanging out with us tonight on this beautiful Monday evening. So we've got 2 games here on the books. We've seen some clips from practice, obviously. Taking a look at some players that could be, their stock could be changing on both sides of the ball, candidly. I think some players are trending in the right direction. I think some players might be trending in the wrong direction here a little bit. And I think some players are it's a little bit murkier, I think, in some of these situations coming out here too, Matthew, that I don't know if I have a ton of clarity right now on some of these players as well. So the floor is yours. I'll start with you. Any stock changes that you want to profile, right off the bat? What do you got?
Yes, but first I have breaking news.
Oh, no.
KCSN's own Nate Taylor has won the hot dog race at Kauffman Stadium. Sorry if anybody DVR'd it and wanted to watch it on their own time after us, but great come from behind victory for Mustard and Nate Taylor. Let's go, Nate.
Let's go,
Everybody's
Nate.
gonna go congratulate him. But okay, stock watch. How to get that in there? Kent was very nervous about the
stock.
breaking news
Hey,
segment.
stock up, Nate Taylor.
Oh man, wait, look, listen.
Doing it in mustard is like
I
so
know.
clutch.
Yeah, that's a problem. You should probably just forfeit if you're mustard usually. I also got to say this, like now I got to do some scouting on this. I might have some competition for any KCSN combine type events. I'm going to have to dial in here and just see that foot speed and everything. That said, stock up. Let's start with Carson Steele. Only got reps with the first team, the kind of first and a half team. You know, he came in there when it was still Carson Wentz was the quarterback, but the other starters were in there. And then he got only one series with like just the backups. The second team, they used him in every possible way. They ran him a couple times. They had him pass protect, including twice on third down. That's a big spot for just a rookie guy trying to make the team. They trusted him in those spots. He did very good on one of them. The second one was a harder assignment, so it didn't look quite as clean, but he bought just enough time for Wentz to get the ball out. And then they also had him be a lead blocker at one point in time. So they kind of showed a little bit of everything. They got the hands in there when they threw him the football. So they flashed everything at him. They said, hey, Carson, you want to make this team? You want to be running back too? Here's everything that you're going to do. I know it's only a preseason game, but we're going to put you in there with the guys that are going to play every single Sunday, and let's see what you can do.
They gave him every opportunity to do everything they possibly could in that game. I mean, he was a lead blocker. He was a pass pro. He caught a pass. He ran the ball, played every special teams. Ryan Haas asked if my first name is actually Contavious. It's not. I've been called Contavious several times in my life. I'm pretty sure Maddie's called me that before, among other things. Anyway, but yeah, no, I think Carson Steele got a chance to do literally everything, and that was great to see. You know, that's I think just getting to put that on tape and performing well. I think in pretty much every aspect, I think this is a kid that can earn reps early in pass pro. I think I trust him over Deneric Prince. I think he's processed things quicker and better than Deneric Prince has. And there's been a lot of struggles, even though, like, you know, Prince has an entire year on him. I think there's no joke that Carson Steele, I think right now on this team is running back too. And until we know the status of Clyde Edwards-Helaire and what's going on with him. So I think I'm fully bought into Carson Steele being RB2 right now, honestly. I'll give you a guy that's stock up for me a little bit. Ethan Driscoll, the tackle out of Marshall. I've been kind of impressed with him. We've seen him play both sides of the ball at this point. We've seen him play left tackle and right tackle now. It's not always been pretty, but I think this is absolutely a kid that has gotten better every single time I've seen him. So he's improved. He's made steps. I thought he played pretty well this last week at left tackle. Now, granted, it's against, you know, backups and all that. But if you're looking for a guy that has a little bit of position flex, has played well in a limited sample size, has the size and good movement skills for being 6'8", I've walked away pretty impressed with him as a developmental tackle for the future of this team. I don't know if he's never going to be like a starter type, I don't think, but I think he's a player that has some positional flexibility, which is always really valuable when you're a rotational tackle. And I think he's warranted enough that I don't think they can put him on the practice squad. I don't think they can. I don't think he'll clear waivers. This is a position that is so vital, that's so important, that teams are always trying to find ways to get better. I don't think that they can let Ethan Driscoll just walk and him make it onto the practice squad. Offensive line seems like a position where teams really do want to try to, you know, find marginal improvement because it's so important. He's stock up for me. I think he's a one. He's kind of crept up on me the last couple of weeks.
I agree. I've been impressed with his play with him on film. I think it's not always pretty, but he's 6'8". So like 6'8" tackles, especially guys that don't go in the top 10, usually don't always look that pretty. Sometimes things look a little funky and a little off, but like they make it work because they have this weird trump card of being really tall. And then like in his case, he's got over 35-inch arms. So he has like the arm length to match the height. So yeah, I'm with you. I think there's promise there. I think this is where you'd have to really go back and rely on your scouting process and just be like, hey, was he undrafted because he was dealing with a little bit of a hamstring injury and nobody could get testing data on him and there was medical concerns? Or was he undrafted because people didn't like the film? Because if it's the latter, you can get him on your practice squad. Nothing that he's done in the preseason, I don't think, is going to change from when he went undrafted. No one is going to go try to bring him onto their active 53-man roster, or they would have already drafted him. If it was concerns about an injury, and that was the issue for him, people were just unsure as they didn't get the measurables, then you might have to protect him a little bit more. And at this point, like, I don't know what the Chiefs' plan is with the international program, who's getting like the protected spot on the practice squad with Shu Godric and Luis Rees-Zammit. I will say this, though. If at some point in time it comes down to the Chiefs can find a way to protect a Driscoll or protect a Shu Godric in terms of a developmental offensive tackle for the future, I might lean towards Driscoll at this point. And I know that Shu Godric's a lot more raw and probably a better athlete overall, but like, it's not like he's young anymore. He's football young, but like, they're 1 year apart in age. So like, they're still both 23 and 24 years old, but I just don't think that Driscoll's some kind of like completely finished product and Shu Godric has this unlimited ceiling. If I had to make the decision between the two of them, I might lean to Driscoll and just see what he can develop into over Godric if you can't find a way to keep both. I just don't know if you're going to get him. I don't know if I'm that concerned that he won't make the practice squad.
Okay, so here's my next stock down. Would you rather have Lucas Niang or Ethan Driscoll on your roster right now?
So stock down, Lucas Niang. Let's just go with that. Here's the thing. I would rather have on my roster Ethan Driscoll. But if I'm the Chiefs and I really want to three-peat this season, and let's say we do suffer an injury and we don't want to put Wanya Morris at right tackle, do I think that they are ready to stick Ethan Driscoll as a rookie in there at right tackle right now? No. Do I think that Lucas Niang's ready to do it either? No. But I think they have more faith that he can do it. I also think like you get this weird dominant potentially run blocking right side of your offensive line with Lucas Niang playing next to Trey Smith. Like, that's a lot of power. That's what Lucas Niang does do well. So like, I don't know if like right now today, if they have to play a game, that he's better than Lucas Niang. So yeah, that's the only caveat to it all, but long-term or even going forward beyond this year, I mean, it's definitely Driscoll.
I thought Ethan Driscoll looked more advanced in pass protection than Lucas Niang did last week. And I'm not like, and I don't want to like, I don't want to hype and gas that. Like, again, I think I'm excited about Ethan Driscoll in the prospect of him as a developmental tackle that has some positional flexibility that I think that she should try to keep around here, because I do think there's something to him. And I'd like to see his developmental process continue here in Kansas City. So I don't want to gas up Ethan Driscoll like he's like the next starting tackle of the Chiefs. But I watched him and I watched Lucas Niang try to pass pro this week. And I just watching literally, Lucas Niang not be able to get out of his set and watch a guy run up the arc and him literally chasing him without touching him up the arc. Now, congrats on chasing him up the arc, I guess. But like, there was some severe struggles there as a pass protector in a pass heavy offense. I get wanting to run behind Lucas Niang and Trey Smith, but at the same time, like, this team is going to try to chuck the ball around the yard. And I think he's a potential liability there that I'd rather just, I don't know.
I won't lose sleep if it's Driscoll. I won't be sitting there thinking, oh my God, if we get an injury to Juwan Taylor, we don't have Lucas Niang to save the season. Like, I don't know if there's a big enough gap in there, but if we were just going to say pure trust right now, I would still lean slightly towards Niang, but I would be fine either way. If you think someone's going to take Ethan Driscoll, I would rather keep him on the 53-man roster and risk him playing right tackle in spurts than make sure you keep Lucas Niang, if like that's what it comes down to, if that makes sense. Quick ones. Wide receiver room, Sky Moore, stock up. A lot of special teams reps, good returns as a kick returner, played early in the game. They also comes on the heels of a lot of good comments from coaching staff leading through the week. Feels pretty safe on the roster. Stock downs, Kadarius Toney, man. Year 4.
Oh, hold on. Yeah, he just committed another penalty. Sorry, please continue.
You're year 4, and you're going to commit 2 penalties in the preseason for like your only impact in the game. Like, it's very fitting. I'm not surprised. That's actually, if you were to give me like a bunch of stat lines to guess, and that was one of them for Kadarius Toney, I would 100% guess that at the end of a game, a 1 catch for -3 yards, but 2 penalties on the same play is 100% somewhere in the median, like possible outcomes for Kadarius Toney. Also, Nico Remigio stock down just because it seems like he has been phased out. I think that he has just been phased out, pushed down towards the bottom of all of the rotations. And I bet he's going to get a ton of run and this final preseason game. And that, maybe he can do something to get himself back in the conversation. But I just think that he's kind of going to be just on the outside because it does sound like the team likes him. It's just, I think he's going to be just outside this year.
Stock murky McCole Hardman? Like,
no, I get the defense from McCole Hardman. I don't think it's up, but here's what it is. Okay, say McCole Hardman doesn't make the team. Who's the receiver that makes it over him? I bet Justin Ross is probably where you're leaning.
That was what I was going to ask you. I was just going to ask
punts?
you. Yeah. I guess if Nico's not making it.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Like if it's not Nico, they say Xavier Worthy can do it, but we haven't seen him do it once. You have in the for the NFL, you haven't seen Sky Moore take a single other punt since they pulled him off of it, or you haven't seen him take punts in the preseason. It seems like it's kind of Nico, Montrell Washington, or McCole Hardman. And of those guys, McCole Hardman seems by far the furthest up the wide receiver rotation. So I feel pretty comfortable saying McCole makes it just for that reason alone.
Yeah, he was getting a lot of burn late into the game. Just kind of was like, well, this is interesting.
Yeah.
He was playing return. He's in the return game real late into that game. I was just like, that was fascinating to me. And yeah, I mean, maybe I'm looking too hard into that one, but I don't know.
I think it's fair. I just think with the punt return, someone's got to do it. And like, if you take McCole out and Nico out, you don't have one that like we've seen, I guess is the best way to say that.
I'd say stock up Hunter Norzad. I thought he played a lot better the second game. I think he took some steps up there. So like, I think it was a lot better. I think the steps from game 1 to game 2, I thought we saw a noticeable improvement from him. So shout out Hunter Norzad for that. Let's move on to the defensive side of the football. You got any big movers for you on defense, Matthew?
Yeah, I think that it's been talked about enough. Stock down Felix and Udike Uzoma. It's just not looking good. It's just not pretty. We don't need to linger here too much because I think we've already kind of like mentioned it, and it will. I assume
everybody knows at this point.
Week 1.
Yeah, everybody knows.
It was just not a good performance. Wasn't a good performance. Other stock downs. I mean, Nick Jones, Kamal Hadden, both barely played. They played like 11 and 7 snaps. It seems like they are comfortably outside of the competition to even make this team. And so it now looks like if you were looking at a 10th defensive back, like if you're going for 10, it seems like they are completely out. And maybe you're getting down to Echo Boydo and Keith Taylor, Kelvin Joseph. And then like the guy that I have stock up from the secondary is the Chris Roland Wallace, who the Chiefs continue to list as a safety, which I understand, but also he plays like essentially only nickel corner. Like all he does is play in the slot. And I think he's been pretty good at it. And he is willing to come up and play in the run fits too. So like, he might be making a push for like their second best nickel cover guy right now. I mean, like Nazeeh Johnson's in that mix too, but he's coming up. He might have a chance to be their second best nickel or slot cover guy. So he's a guy that's interesting to keep an eye on, I think, moving forward.
I believe Christian Roland Wallace did get some reps as a deep safety in camp from plenty of those. Tucker, I mean, you've been there before, and I think you said like Christian Roland Wallace was getting some run as a 2 deep safety. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's been kind of getting reps all over the defensive backfield. They're just kind of seeing what he can do.
For sure. And so like, yeah, well, I do think like they've definitely seen a lot of reps out there, in the slot. I do think that he's shown some ability to play back there, and they've used him plenty out there. Kind of like how, I mean, like Shamari Connor has gotten a little bit of run as a 2 deep safety and stuff like that too. So like, I think it's in the bag. I still think
stock down.
You okay? Go for it.
Oh, Shamari Connor hasn't been good this preseason. I mean, he looks like a guy that's been giving a lot more on his plate, and it's just not, things aren't quite clicking as fast as what they were last year when his job was a little bit more narrow. Now, when Justin Reid comes back and maybe his role gets narrowed a little bit more again, maybe he looks better again, but we've also seen him miss tackles. We've seen him take poor angles, and these are things that he didn't do last year. I watched a lot of Shamari Connor's reps from deep in the slot, in the box, and like there was things that he needed work on and development for all those spots, but like he never looked, athletically in terms of like how fast he moved and then the angles he took to the ball were never the issue. They've been the issue so far in preseason. So I'm hoping it's a little bit of they're asking him to do everything right now and not just kind of like a sophomore, like half step back that we're going to see from him. So like, I do think that changes the numbers a little bit. I do wonder what that means for a Trent McDuffie, maybe going back to play in the slot more frequently. What does that do to a safety rotation that's seen Jaden Hicks play really, really well? Does he eat into some of Shamari Connor snaps if those things don't go? So like, yeah, I don't think it's been a strong preseason for Connor so far.
Yeah, there's definitely some questions about what the Chiefs are going to do, just kind of moving those guys around because they know what Trent McDuffie's able to do in the slot. They've talked a lot about him playing outside and keeping Shamari Connor there in the slot, and we'll see what kind of happens there for sure. But I think there's plenty of questions just around that whole group. I think we're kind of at the point where not a ton of guys have really stepped up. It's the same names running it there at the cornerback spot. I don't think there's been a ton of stock up for, some of these guys that you were hoping to see maybe take a step. You talked about Nick Jones and Kelvin Joseph and Keith Taylor. None of those guys have really grasped it and taken, full control of one of those spots. So that, I think that does open the spot for maybe you're more creative with what your defensive back rotation is. Maybe the door is open a little bit for a Christian Roland Wallace. Anybody else for you stock up, stock down on defense?
I think Curtis Jacobs still continues at linebacker to look good. He looks athletic. He looks fast. I think he makes some plays in coverage and showing off his range. I don't know if it will be enough to make the team. Like, that's what it comes down to, is I think he's playing better, but is he playing better enough to knock off a Cam Jones or to keep a Cole Christensen from really pushing for that spot? I don't think Jack Cochran's particularly played well and Nick Bolton's place is the starting Mike, but I think he's definitely safe there for his special teams value and the fact that he is the backup Mike. He is a Ben Niemann-like player that is going to safely make this team, and it's going to make some fans upset because he doesn't always look great. But I just don't know if there's anyone for Curtis Jacobs to realistically knock off. But I think he's looked good. If they end up going with him over Cam Jones, I'd be a little sad that Cam Jones is being risked on the practice squad because I think he has a place. But I would also understand going for that athleticism and assuming you're going to get a equal level of special teams player from Curtis Jacobs.
I think they could probably get one of those guys onto the practice squad, either one of them.
Sure. Yeah. It's just my only thing is, like, if somebody liked what Cam Jones put on tape last year against the Chargers in his extended time and you make him the practice squad guy and he doesn't make it, like I said, I'd be a little sad. It's not like a huge deal, but like, it'd be a little sad because I do think there's potential for him to grow into like a rotational type linebacker for this team go in the future. So I would like to keep him, but also find a way to keep Curtis Jacobs around is all.
Yep. Okay. Well, the Chiefs are, starting the season off with two AFC North opponents. They're both pretty good teams. I forgot to mention this earlier. I loved how just naturally you call Cincinnati the Fraud Goals. Like, I love it so much. Like, it's just
fraudulent team around.
It's so comfortable and natural. Like, you don't even think about it anymore. It's not been the Bengals in your head legitimately for like 3 years, and I just love it. We're looking at biggest threats to this team, to this Chiefs team. Like, when you're and
not
honestly,
those frauds.
They're a good football team with an inferior quarterback, with an inferior haircut. But who do you see as kind of the biggest threats to the Chiefs right now?
So this is a weird year for the AFC. I think the AFC is very strong. But when I really start to lay this out on paper, and some of this is probably, we're getting into the football season, I'm starting to drink a little bit of the Chiefs Kool-Aid. I pay a lot more attention to the Chiefs and other teams. It's very easy to see all of the potential and upside of the Chiefs hitting right now, right? That is a lot easier for me to see than the more surface area knowledge that I have of the other teams, the AFC, to see them hitting their ceiling and think it's going to be as good. So like right now, good AFC. But on paper, I don't know. I don't see anyone competing with the Chiefs realistically. Like it just doesn't seem like it would happen right now. The Bills, I think, have taken a step back roster-wise, and now also losing Matt Milano for a substantial amount of time, most likely, that really hurts them in a team that's already having to go through a big changeover. The Dolphins, I don't care what you do. As soon as that temperature drops below 42 degrees, you guys are toast. Like, it just, that doesn't matter to me. And so we're kind of left. Then you go to the North there, and the Ravens are scary. Very good team last year. I can see how it works, but they had a lot of change. I just need to see it to believe it from them. Fraud goals, I know. Matchup wise, the Browns scare me the most, but I don't trust Deshaun Watson as far as he can throw a football, which anymore is not very far. So like, we're running out of teams, man. We're running out of teams. Like the Texans, if they take that next step, the Texans, the Browns, like that might be my 1-2, just like matchup wise, that I think are the scariest for the Chiefs. And we kind of talked about that because the Chiefs play both them. We did our season game, week by week previews. And I set up for both of those. I can see a path for both these teams to be a kind of bad matchup for the Chiefs and present some problems for them. So I think those two are pretty rough.
Yeah, I think on paper, you know, even looking at some of these teams here that have been historically challenging this team, it speaks to, and I've said this in certain ways over the last couple of years, but how impressive it is that the Chiefs have kind of tamped down and kept a version of a lot of different teams that, you know, have good quarterbacks and have established quarterbacks from winning a ring. How impressive that is when you're speaking on the legacy of Patrick Mahomes. It's very impressive what he's been able to do to just kind of, you know, tamp down some of these teams and that, you know, that have burned through the rookie deal phase of their quarterback play. And there are holes on these teams similar to, you know, what the Chiefs endure. Like there's question marks surrounding some of these teams. Buffalo, Curtis Samuel, all of them, absolutely. Even the Texans, like a well-run organization. I think, you know, they've got some quality offensive line to go with a really good receiving core and a young quarterback. Like I think that offense could be really good. Yeah, maybe they don't have a ton of playmakers on the defensive side of the ball, but they have some ascending players that if they ascend, they could be real problems in the National Football League for the Chiefs. But when
this
you look
feels
at
like the first year, this feels like the first year where the Chiefs and every other AFC team have equal amounts of holes on the roster on paper. You look through the years past, the Chiefs, you can say they're the best team or whatever, but like we would go through like position by position. The Chiefs felt like they had more holes somewhere on their roster than other teams that were competing for the top of the AFC. The problem was they didn't have Patrick Mahomes and they just weren't good enough. And that was the whole point. The NFL messed up and let the Chiefs win back-to-back Super Bowls while there were other teams in the division and in the NFC, or not the division, but the conference and in the NFC that were better top to bottom teams, 1 to 53 teams.
Rosters.
I think that gap in the AFC is closed now. I think every team we're looking at has holes just like the Chiefs. And so now every roster, even taking away the quarterbacks, every roster is pretty close to even. And now I get to drop back in, bar none, the best quarterback in the league. Scary times for the AFC.
That's where the having Mahomes and other teams not matters. But you look at like Baltimore's got offensive line issues, and you know Buffalo lost Curtis Samuel already. They've got Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman at receiver right now. They've had injuries on the defensive side of the football already with Matt Milano, and Cole Bishop has missed a lot of time as a rookie, who's, you know, someone that they expected to play a little bit, right? So there's just a lot of little things piling up there. Houston, I think, makes a lot of sense, but like it's a big ask for a team to go from a wild card winner to Super Bowl contender. I mean, to a true AFC championship type team, right? Like that's a big step that not a lot of people take. I like CJ Stroud a lot. I don't know if he's that kind of guy, because that kind of guy is Patrick LeVon Mahomes, and that's the kind of player that ascends there. But yeah, there's plenty of issues to acknowledge in multiple cities right now in the AFC. And I think it's a good place for the Chiefs to be in, because I continually say like, hey, I'd rather, I like when teams pay not Patrick Mahomes a contract that exceeds what Patrick Mahomes is making per year, because that means that they're going to have a hard time building a football team around him. And I think that's just going to be the nature of the beast when you have a good quarterback moving forward. Some other teams are trying to do it and try to get by with lesser quarterbacks right now on the NFC side. Like that's kind of seems to be the trend. And that's kind of been the teams that have ascended on the NFC side. They ultimately haven't been able to really exceed, the Mahomes factor. But yeah, I think all the good quarterbacks here in the AFC, the Bills come in due and they still don't have a ring, which is just a delightful place to be in. All of them still have plenty of issues there. So any other teams, any dark horse teams for you?
Who was your pick? Did you tell me who you thought was the biggest threat?
I still think it's probably Baltimore. Yeah. Successful regular season team, they can put themselves in a position very easily to be if the Chiefs slip at all, they could be the team that winds up, hosting the AFC again. And, I think Lamar, hey, look, it might always come down to, Lamar versus Pat. It may always be the case, but there's a lot of talent on that roster still. And, we'll see we'll see what Derrick Henry has. If he's able to kind of be that dude for another year, it could present some problems for this team.
Would you be nervous if the Chiefs had to go play the AFC title game in Miami against the Dolphins? In Miami?
No, I think this version of the Dolphins is a lesser version than what we saw last year. I think they've had to make some really tough decisions. They've lost like a Christian Wilkins on the defensive side of the football. So I don't think the defense is going to be nearly as, I don't think it's going to be a salty defense this year. Offensively, like they're still going to be really good. They're still going to be a really good team. But I just have some doubts that team's like they've got some concerns on the defensive side of the ball for sure.
Yeah,
like they've lost an impact player.
And I don't think either good edge rusher that they have is like healthy yet. Like they don't know when they're coming back. Bradley Chubb or Jalen Phillips like seems to be up in the air a little bit. So yeah, with Miami, I think the fact that the game was so cold overshadowed the fact that I think they're just not physical. And once you get to the playoffs, everyone's body's beat up a little bit by then. So being physical can matter. And like, yeah, it matters more in the cold, but watch that game. I don't think it being 15 degrees warmer, 20 degrees warmer was the difference between what we saw and, just them kind of being bully balled around, right? I think that's going to happen to them in the playoffs, no matter where the game is. But obviously in Miami, it would be more like scarier than somewhere else. No, I don't have any sleeper teams. Like there's like, I think the Colts might be kind of frisky if Anthony Richardson stays healthy all year, but like, do I think that they are a threat to the Chiefs? No, they're just frisky to make the playoffs. So yeah, I feel pretty good about where the Chiefs stand. I think the Ravens are a good one to put out there. And then, like I said, matchup wise, the Texans and the Browns, I think give you the most issues. Deshaun Watson, and then like a second year sole play caller, second year quarterback. I don't know if they're ready for a Steve Spagnuolo, Andy Reid attack in the playoffs on the big stage right now.
On Wednesday, we are going to have someone on the show that we have not had on before. And I'm very much looking forward to next week's or to Wednesday's episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. Cannot wait for you to all hear from a friend of ours. Looking forward to it. That is going to do it for this episode of the KC Laboratory. Thank you so much for listening. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll catch you later.
Mats are taking over.